how much do you think I've spent in ads so far? I've made over $3 million. I looked at my ad account this morning. I haven't even spent $150,000 in ads.
Hey, Evelyn here. I just quickly wanted to hop on to encourage you to sign up to my newsletter. When you do that, you'll not only be informed as soon as a new episode drops, but you also get access to my exclusive Growth Goodie Bag. That is a collection of highly valuable resources provided by our guests and myself, tools, strategies, case studies, templates, and so much more that will help you to grow and monetize that growth journey. If that sounds fair, then click the link and make sure to sign up to my newsletter.
Laurel, thank you so much for taking the time today. You have been my top 3 dream guest for my podcast, and my podcast has been something I've been dreaming about for 3 years. You are one of my secret heroes. I think I told you, but the reason why I started a $7 membership was because I saw your ads and I was like, oh, there's a $7 membership. Maybe I can have a $7 membership that's always open. So I just saw your ads. It was the inspiration for doing this. And, this actually changed my life, seeing your ads like that. And so I was so excited to meet you. You have built a wildly successful community with, I think now it's almost 4,000 members. Have you reached that point yet?
We surpassed the 4,000. And so I told myself when I got to 4,000 members, I was going to cap it out. And so my assistant and wife, Christina, is actually right now closing out all of the open carts, and we're in the middle of transitioning it to the waitlist funnel. So that's super exciting.
That's super exciting. That's so cool. 4,000 members with a waiting list. Your VIP offers are, I think, always booked out, right? And you've been selling so consistently, so well, with the lowest cost per purchase I've seen on the internet for memberships. Like, whenever I'm seeing your screenshots, I'm like, how is she getting $1.90 cost per purchase? I don't even believe it. So you're a huge hero of mine. I'm so grateful that you took the time, and maybe share a little bit about your personal and professional growth journey, which has been really, I think, exciting and not your average growth journey because your background is actually in TV. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me because, my students are always like, we want to see you and Evelyn together. And I'm like, well, I'm actually a huge fan of Evelyn. And so a lot of my students are huge fans of yours too. So the respect there is definitely mutual. You're someone, who openly invited me, to your group. And so I've been learning a lot just being in there and, thinking of ways that I can optimize my group as well, because at the end of the day, it's all about getting results for people. Right. And so I always I don't know why people are so weird about competition, because I really don't see anyone as competitors, because we're all in this together and we're all giving value to the same group. So thank you for having me. And so I started working in television in 2002. So this was way before, Facebook was a thing and even social media. And so, a lot of people, when they come into my membership, they're always like, wow, this is something completely different. Like, your way of doing advertising is something that I've never really seen before. And it's because I set up my ads ecosystem as a strategy that I have been doing to launch television shows for years. And so the way that I look at advertising isn't $1 in and $2 out like so many other people teach. And I think that's what has really led me to having the success that I have, is because I'm looking at a much bigger marketing strategy versus the story that the Facebook ads manager is telling people. And so it's kind of like a combined strategy of giving value, building up that pipeline equity, and really just showing up every single day for a certain audience.
That's so beautiful. I love what you said about the competition, because how on earth can I compete with you when you have basically templatized your personal journey with ads, right? So I think that's a beautiful thing about when you have really grown into becoming your own expert in a field. You just basically trying, and by the way, that's a post you recently shared about when people ask you, right, oh, will this work? And you're like, I don't know, let's try it, right? So never kind of promising something, but just saying, here's what I know, here's what I did, let's try if it works for you. And so you have this really unique, genuinely experience-based framework that is nobody can copy that, right? Because it's your journey and you know it in and out. And when I see your ads and the way you have conceptualized and captured and deeply understood this ecosystem, it is something so proprietary that I think it makes it really special, and it's so complementary to every advertisement approach I've ever seen. I'm much more direct response marketer than you are, and I completely see how it plugs so many holes in the funnel and how it solves so many problems. So I think you've just done the most beautiful thing, translating what you've learned about launching shows into basically every field of advertising, right? So you're helping also not only coaches, course creators. I think you're helping a large variety of people, right?
Yes, I work with a lot of brick and mortar businesses.
Yeah.
I work with, pretty much a lot of niches. We're talking gyms, real estate agents, insurance agents. There's really not a niche that this strategy doesn't work for. That's kind of like saying, TV ads only work for a certain, type of person, when it's really, I look at Facebook ads or YouTube ads, Instagram ads, really just as a different vehicle to deliver content. And so that's kind of whenever I kind of laugh when people are like, oh, Facebook ads don't work for me. And I'm like, that's kind of ridiculous, because if an ad shows up in your newsfeed, Facebook ads worked, right? It's the conversion mechanism on the other end that's likely the thing that didn't work. But I always laugh, because it's like saying that like TV commercials don't work, right? But like, even in all my years of television, I've never once had, because I worked right alongside the sales department, right? Because the sales department is what sells the advertising, and I never had like a car dealership or an accident attorney storm into my cubicle, right? Because we didn't get an office. Storm into my cubicle and be like, Laurel, I demand to know which of your commercials brought these clients into my car dealership this month, right? You can't do that. And so I think that this type of level of understanding of how advertising actually works, and the way that I'm actually passing this down to my students, because I have had to actually reteach people how to look at advertising. And, brick and mortar businesses, they are, I think, a really underserved market, yet they're the easiest to actually get results for. Because think about this, like even back in the day of television, they used to have to go in, spend like $2,000 or $3,000 just to get a commercial spot designed for them. Then they would have to spend like $2,000 or $3,000 for one spot in like prime time, right? Where now the playing field is pretty level, because it's no longer the accident attorney that's spending tens and thousands of dollars. Now every single accident attorney in that city has a level playing field, and they can do so with just as easy as like $5 a day and reach, if not more people than that billboard that's in front of like tens and thousands, that someone's spending tens and thousands of dollars to have.
That's so true. And I would love to capture like two things you said, I think was so interesting. The first one was the pipeline equity. And I think that ties back to how you understand personal brand. Could you speak a little bit to that? Or what does it mean to build up pipeline equity with ads?
100%. And so it all starts with, I will just be brave and I'll just say this, like we've all been bamboozled that like we're just one funnel away, right? Even though I'm a huge Russell Brunson fan. But here's the problem with that, right? Like people build marketing funnels and expect them to work as a physical funnel does, right? The type that you pour oil into your car and it goes all nice and neat. And we are now expecting that if we pour a whole bunch of people into a funnel, they are just naturally going to ascend down the funnel. But people do not do that, because oil is pulled by physics and gravity, right? Humans have all kinds of things. They're scared, they're overwhelmed. And so we can put humans into the funnel, but most people don't understand that humans will not get past that first step if they don't have clarity, if they don't have certainty, and they don't have trust. And this is where a lot of people fail to get people even through that first step of the funnel. And so the way that I like to do that is keeping my pipeline equity full, meaning I like to give out a lot of goodwill content, like our friend, Mr. Alex Harmozy, and really helping people make that transition, right? Because here's the thing, oil will move through a funnel with zero. It's just gravity is going to pull it down. But with humans, we have to create that same type of pull, where a lot of marketers are doing a push, right? And you see this from sales guys. They're trying to push people down the funnel. The problem with that, though, is that if we can get people to change their behavior, but if we don't get them to change their belief, that's where buyer's remorse actually comes in, right? It's like one of those things, right? Like I'll give you a perfect example, right? So let's say you have a mom and she wants to lose the baby weight, right? And she's been struggling with this for 2 years. And she gets on a sales call and the salesperson is like, come on, like, you need to invest in yourself. And she's really like shamed into buying this, going to the gym, right? And he busts that objection and she gives him the money. The first time that she tries to leave to go out that door, her 2-year-old hugs her legs and screams, Mama, please don't go, please don't go. The mom starts to think, oh my God, I am a bad mom. My kid is screaming and crying. I can't go to the gym. My in-laws are going to think I'm a bad mom, that all I care about is myself. That's the story that she's telling herself, right? And so if we don't have content that's going to help change that false belief for that mom, what's going to happen? She's either going to ask for a refund really quickly because she doesn't actually have time to go to the gym, or she's not going to participate fully in the program and get the results that you want. And so that top of funnel content needs to not only change people's behavior, but it also has to eliminate a lot of false belief. I know I just went really deep there, but that's like the importance of like that pipeline equity where we're keeping a lot of goodwill content and very little sales content. Because here's the thing, I don't have to push people down my funnel. My gravity, right, is automatically like pull. It's a magnetic pull because of all of my goodwill content. And so that's why a lot of times people come into my messenger and they're like, could I have the link to Lean on Laurel? I don't have to do VSLs. I don't have to do webinars. I don't have to do launches because I bake all of this into my entire content strategy. And what is ads? Ads are just organic content with money on it. So if it's working organically, I just take that organic content and I throw a couple of bucks on it and I just keep showing it in front of people who are watching the other pieces of content, right? A lot of people think, oh, your strategy is so complicated. All I'm doing is showing people videos, retargeting the people who are watching them and showing them more.
I think the complicated part about your strategy is just how you're actually helping people to do what you just said on the smallest budget humanly possible. That's what makes it complicated, but that's really the only, or I actually don't think it's that complicated, but if you find anything about that complicated, it's that part that helps you save money. So,
all right, 100%. Like, how much do you think I've spent in ads so far? I've made over $3 million. I looked at my ad account this morning. I haven't even spent $150,000 in ads yet.
That's amazing, right?
My first million was with I want to say it was like $36,800 with my it's in my book, like exactly, but like my first million, it was like 36,000. It was something like just something stupid low, and it's just been crazy. But like a lot of people think that $5 ads don't work, but they're looking at it from a conversion standpoint versus the pipeline equity standpoint. When you look at an advertising strategy from a pipeline equity standpoint, you can get away with as little as $1, $2 per ad a day, right? So you can actually keep your ad budget low as long as you have the mindset that I'm using this to grow my business over time and not see that $1 in, $2 out, mentality. Because people who have that mentality tend to have a really hard time with ads because it is so hard to get that return on ad spend that quickly, especially with that low of a budget. Like you can't expect that with that low of a budget. And so that's why I always tell people my ecosystem doesn't replace a funnel. It is built around it. And so it works with direct response. Like I had a guy who came into my program. He's spending about $110,000 a month. He was doing nothing but sending people to a VSL. I showed him a little retargeting sequence that's part of my ecosystem called the Hot 7. He immediately $10 a call from $400 a call.
Wow.
And literally sold. He literally the first day was on, I never forget, it was a coaching call. And he's like, Laurel, like you literally lowered my cost per call from like 400 something to $10. Then literally 5 minutes later, he was like, Laurel, that call turned into a $5,000 sale. And I was like, see, it's not about like how much you're spending, because Facebook will spend however much you give it.
Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of people just discount. It's like my ecosystem is literally just either one, building an audience before you have it, or two, which is the high returns, is utilizing traffic that you've already paid Facebook for anyway.
Yeah. I think that's so genius. And I think oh my goodness, there's so many questions I want to ask you. But before I want to let people know where they can learn it now that you're not letting anybody in anymore anytime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So they can go actually to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Laurel Show. Also, if they prefer to read, then watch videos. Like some of my students are like, Laurel, I love your stuff, but I would rather read it. And so it took me a couple of years to write this. It's called Super Duper Profitable Ads. and you can get it on Amazon. I actually started reading the Audible on my podcast. So, you can go to my podcast and just, Google. If you Google my name, my YouTube channel will come up, my podcast will come up, and every piece of content that you did or didn't want to see is going to come up.
But be careful, you're going to be in the funnel as soon as you click on one thing.
Oh, yeah. Fair warning. If you click on anything of mine, I will stalk you across TikTok. I will stalk you on YouTube. You will not get rid of me for years.
I think it's a gift to be followed by Laurel. Also, I'm going to make sure to link it for everyone. And that's why, I think it's such an honor to talk with you, because people need to know about this. It's such an affordable, smart way to really plug the holes in your funnel. And even though it is affordable, simple, effective, you still sometimes struggle to sell people on the strategy because of patience. How did you personally deal with members that you can't help in that regard? Or what's your experience with that? Because I sometimes experience that too with my strategies, especially when there's something that requires you to believe and do for an extended period of time before the returns came in. People fall off before they do the necessary things or keep doing the necessary things long enough. How does that affect you, or does it at all? And how do you deal with it?
That used to be something that really did affect the way that, my students were coming into the program. The book has been super helpful as far as educating people. We started implementing something that I tell my students is they don't get support unless they go and do something that me and my mentor call engaging the field, right? Because you cannot go by someone else's data. Even though you're in the same niche, you have to go and engage the field. But it's also 90 days to data. Now, let me explain that, because one of my students actually last week on a coaching call literally had the head explosion. He's like, oh my God, I've misunderstood what you were talking about. He said 90 days to data. He was looking at it. I'm going to let my ads just run for 90 days and then I'm going to look at the data. What I say is 90 days to data is I built a day-by-day flywheel. As a matter of fact, if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see I call it my 7-day flywheel. And it's built upon 7 days, but it's meant to run every single day, right? Like a flywheel. I don't know if anyone understands the flywheel concept. It's hard to get the momentum going, but once a flywheel gets going, it speeds up, it gains speed, right? Whether it's going uphill, however, right? And so I built this flywheel for it to solve that specific issue, because my students didn't know when they should be checking their ads. And so I created this flywheel strategy where every single day they have one assignment. And so I tell my students, if you run this for 90 days and you come to me and say, Laurel, this did not work, you better have 90 pieces of content to show me that you did the strategy, right? Because it's 90 days to data. Because think about this, Evelyn. If you launch one new ad every single day for 90 days, the volume is in your favor, right? You are going to have a couple of ads that are going to be bangers. And that's what I tell my students is like 9 out of 10 of my ads fail. But because of the flywheel strategy, you're able to gain some momentum, because even if you have the suckiest ad, if you're constantly staying in front of someone for 90 days, like right now, my offers are freaking ridiculous. Like if I have an offer to a cold audience, I'm going to struggle just like everyone else. But I have been able to get away by not creating these quote grand slam offers, because I have positioned myself on a consistent basis with content. I can sell things like I sold out my Black Friday offer without anyone knowing what the offer was. Right? Me and my mentor sold out our $15,000 mastermind without telling people what they were going to get. People were just like, I don't know what it is, but I want in. And so in my opinion, when you're putting out content on a consistent basis and building up that pipeline equity, positioning becomes ahead of the offer. And then you don't have to worry about having the perfect copy, the perfect offer. Like those are things that I don't have to worry about anymore, because I've just built up that trust and certainty with my audience on that daily basis. And so that's why that's the flywheel effect that I built for my students to actually take care of that problem right there. Because they have to understand that, and Alex Hormozy always talks about this. And I love that he talks about it so much, because, there are so many marketers who do talk about those shorter time frames, like 90 days to success, 90 days to do this. And really, a more realistic timeline is more 3 to 5 years, right? I'm not the best at doing ads. Like, I'm just the person that has stayed in front of everyone the longest, right? A lot of the people that started when I started, they're no longer doing content because they've already moved on to doing something else,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's what I always tell my students. I'm like, I'm not the best at doing ads. I'm just the one that has honestly stayed in front of people the longest. And just by default, I win.
Yeah. I always say in business, it's like those, those old car giveaways, and it's kind of who holds the hand the longest on the car gets the prize. So I feel that's so true in business.
Oh, 100%, because you just become the go-to, you know? And so it's if people think that they're failing, I mean, I see so many people who are actually winning with their ads, but they've turned them off because because they're not seeing that quick return. And it's like, if you're like a restaurant down the street and you're running all of your ads and even if you're just boosting posts to the people who are watching your content, and you're just like, happy hour today, lunch special today, like, you're gonna get all of the customers because you're staying in front of the people versus the restaurant down the street who's like stopping and starting, you know?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it's one of the reasons why I have a little bit of a different approach, right? More direct response. And one of the first things I teach people is Facebook lead gen ads, so they can, with a strategic freebie, kind of filter the type of person they want to reach. So they have an email address in exchange for $1. And you still, very similar to what you do, right? You just do it on the other side on your email list. You have to go send the email. Otherwise, it also doesn't help you like at all. But I think sometimes it's for people so mentally important to get something immediately in exchange for their money. But it's something you have to be aware of, that you sometimes have to pay more just because you are buying yourself that certainty that you just got something in exchange. So you choose what you're willing to spend money on.
Just so you know, like, I do direct response marketing. As a matter of fact, my mentor and I, like, he just released a case study of the lead gen campaign that we're running, and he actually posted it in this book that he's releasing. And check this out. You probably won't be able to say, but look, 99% delivered, and our open rate is 88% right now.
Oh, that's freaking amazing.
And we have over 1,500 people on the list. So, and we're using the same strategy that I'm talking about right now, pipeline equity, for email. And 88.5% open rate, 57% click-through rate, 28% reply to us.
That's freaking insane to put that in context. Like, we get on good ones, we get half of that. Like, we get around 40% open rate. So that's really, really freaking amazing results.
It's just the same, that everything that I just talked about, he's really good on the email side, but we are literally executing the same strategy, just a different vehicle. That's how we're selling our mastermind, is through the email.
That's for the mastermind.
Yeah. So I think people think that I don't do like direct response marketing. I do. We just use the exact same strategy. It just so happens that I just like the video and the ads better, but we're executing it on the email side as well.
What tip would you give to somebody who's shy to go on video?
Yeah. I was actually telling my students this morning. I was doing an ads blitz, and I was setting the expectations. And, I was telling people the story about how whenever I first started, I was still working in television, and Amy Porterfield, Rachel Peterson, lots of very pretty women who are very well put together show up on camera. And here I was, I'm a t-shirt, no makeup type of, person, roll out of bed, bedhead. And, sometimes you have to just change the way that you show up, and you have to practice. Because even whenever I started, I had a leg up because I was behind the camera, right? I wrote copy. I was behind the camera shooting all of these commercials and TV shows and stuff for years. So I naturally knew how to talk on camera because I was writing words on camera for years, right? I just wasn't the one saying them. I had that leg up. But one of the things that I did have to learn is inflection and tone and the way that you talk. And so if you are someone who's afraid to show up on video, go through a video confidence course. Like, at the end of the day, we have to show up as our best authentic selves, because here's the thing. You can have the best script in the world. You could have the best information. But if you cannot present it well and represent yourself well on camera, it's not going to convert on the other side. I have a student who is his first language isn't English. And so one of the things that I'm actually working with him, he's freaking brilliant. But one of the barriers, and this is just something that all of us, we have some type of barrier that's like, that we all need to work on. And so with him, he's like, Laurel, he's like, I need you to work with me just on my tone and my English so that like when people hear me, they're actually like hearing me and they're not distracted by all of these other things. And so I would say to anyone who's scared to get on video, Gary Vee's about to release a new book. By the time this podcast airs, he might have already released it, but Day Trading Attention, he says it best. Like, you have to go where your attention is. I freaking hate LinkedIn, but you know what? I have to put my content on LinkedIn because a lot of my audience is on LinkedIn. People who are hiring me to go speak at their events, they're on LinkedIn. And so we just have to be able to learn how to go where our attention is. One of the biggest complainers of my strategy is actually the people that it works the best for, real estate agents, right? And they know, I tell them this all the time. I was like, my strategy works the best for you guys, yet you are so reluctant because they're so used to, being able to work their lead list. And now they're complaining that these punks on TikTok are stealing my clients because they're on TikTok. I'm like, that's where the attention is. Your clients are literally getting swept by these people who know how to show a house on YouTube, know how to show a house on TikTok. And so it's like, if you don't learn how to do video, and I even had a talk with, one of my clients who's a restaurant owner. You have to learn how to incorporate a video strategy. That's where the attention is right now on social media, is in video. And so I would just tell anyone, and I know this might sound harsh, but you need to figure out how to best represent you or yourself on video. You need to figure it out, because I am afraid for any business who doesn't figure it out, because this is where the attention is, and I don't see it going away anytime soon. You either have to learn how to be really good on social media, or you have to have deep, deep pockets for your other type of marketing to actually take the place of social media, which is really, really hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to know, Laurel, kind of taking a step back, how did you come from TV to Facebook ads? So you launched the shows from the TV station already on Facebook? That must have been early days Facebook ads, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. So when Facebook ads came around, this was 2008-ish. And I was working for CBS. And so it's so funny. My boss actually came to me, and I'm laughing as I'm saying this, and I actually talk about it in my book. I was at CBS in Dallas, and I was in a band. I was in a punk band. And so during my lunch hour, I would get on Facebook and I would make our Facebook events, and I would invite people. And he's like, CBS wants to try a little experiment. People seem to be on this thing called Facebook. And I see you on there. You're the young and hip one of the department. And so would you want to take this on? He's like, you're not going to get paid extra. You still have to do your producing. He's like, I know it's going to be, this is what he said. I know it's going to probably be a waste of time, but can you get a Facebook page up and running? And can we just run the same strategy? And so basically that's where I kind of got my social media strategy from, is I operated it the same that we did a TV station, right? Because you have to have, and I would call it the Mimi strategy, right? You have to be motivating, you have to be educating, you have to make the pitch, and you also have to be entertaining. And so if you look at the way a TV station is ran, you have your motivation with your morning show, you have your education with all of your news programs, right? Then you have your making the pitch, which is the advertising, the bread and butter, the commercials, and then you have the entertainment, like the sitcoms. And so that is something that I have carried over from my days of TV. And so that's the way that we worked our social media strategy, was running it exactly how we ran the TV station. And it just happened to translate really, really well onto social media. But I honestly, like, if you would have asked me 10 years ago what I would be doing right now, I would tell you that I'd be working at ABC 11 in Los Angeles. That was my ultimate goal. I wanted to do that. And 2016, I was working at a syndicated show in Phoenix, Arizona. And I met my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. And we're just sitting there watching TV. And I was like, just because we had just started dating. And I was like, what do you want to do? Like, she's like, I've always had this dream to like have a t-shirt shop. And I'm like, what? Because she did HR for Delta Airlines, right? So this was like really out of left field. And I was like, you know what? And I just like grabbed my laptop and I was like, look, there's all these like drop ship places. I was like, oh my God, we can create t-shirts right now and not even have to carry inventory. I was like, I know how to do Facebook ads. I was like, let's just test this out. And at the time, I was like, well, and she's like, well, what kind of shirt should we design? And I was like, well, I love to ride a bicycle. I mean, you can't see it, but I have like a bicycle right here on my wall. I love to bicycle, right? And anytime I would go and sign all these snarky t-shirts with bicyclists, it was always unisex. And I really don't like unisex t-shirts because the sleeves come down to here. I like, girl cut shirts. And I couldn't find any. And so I was like, let's design some fun t-shirts for women cyclists, right? And it was so funny. It was like all these like, 50s and 60s women kind of design. And it was like, I came on my bike, like all these really dirty on double entendre type t-shirts. And so I ran ads and we were doing really, really well. Like we were going to events and I saw this ad and you're going to laugh because you know exactly what this is. But I saw an ad for a Damon John workshop. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my God, Damon John's going to be in Phoenix and he's doing a free workshop for business.
I was from one in Vancouver, from the other guy, from the Mr. Nice Guy.
Oh, the Kevin?
Yeah. So, yes, I know what they are.
I saw it and I was like, we got to do this. And so it was on a Saturday, so both of us were off. And so we went, we were excited. We're going to see Damon John. Obviously, we weren't going to see Damon John. We were going to see a group of people who were going to upsell us into this another paid 2-day workshop, right? And because I'm not the type to like half-ass anything, we were getting traction just with the ads that we were doing. Like we already had a whole bunch of buyers and repeat buyers. And so we were getting some traction with our t-shirt company. And we ended up, I was like, you know what? F it. Let's pay the $2,000, which is a lot of money for people who have full-time jobs, right? Like that's still a lot of money. So we paid the $2,000 and we spent 2 days with Damon John's team, not him, but he sent out. So we were assigned a business consultant and they're looking at our numbers and he's like, who's doing your Facebook ads? And I was like, oh, that's me. And he's like, well, what's your experience with doing Facebook ads? I'm like, oh, well, I work at the TV station and I've been doing ads since. And he's like, shut up. He's like, why the F are we talking about t-shirts right now? He's like, do you know how much people will pay you to do this for them? And I'm like, I don't know. I get paid X amount. He's like, how much do you make at the TV station? And I was like, I don't know, like $54,000 a year. He's like, how would you like to make that a month? I'm like, nah, bro. That just was so like, and he was like, I really think you should, think about this. And I went home and I was like, God, is this guy like full of like, I never forget his name was Anders. So Anders, if you're listening to this, like, thank you. I didn't fully believe it. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go and do exactly what we did for the t-shirts. I'm just going to go live and I'm going to give away information and I'm just going to see what happens. Mm-hmm. And so in April of 2018, I went live. And by November of 2018, I was quitting my job because I was making 3 times the amount by working 3 hours a day instead of like 8 hours a day.
That's so
and I was making 3 times the money. And I literally just went live every single day, like every morning, and I tell my students this all the time. For the first over 100 days, it was crickets. No one was. And then I started learning little tricks. MLMs were huge at the time and people were doing those comment ladder things, like, hey, I'm promoting everyone's business today. Everyone comment. And I was like, that's a cool idea. I was like, I wonder if I can get more engagement on my videos if I took that same idea and gave away resources during my lives. And so there we go. There was that power content strategy getting taken to the next level. That was the life-changing moment was whenever I added the whole value bomb thing to my power content strategy. That literally just freaking took off. And here we are 6 years later.
Well, it's such a cool story. I want to know so many things. Like, what was it like getting the first t-shirt order? Do you still know what t-shirt it was? How was Christina feeling? Because it was her as well.
Yeah, like we were having a great time. Like, and I still tell my students this to this day. I was like, we joined all of the bike rides in Phoenix. We did all of the networking groups. Like, it wasn't just about the ads. We were building a community before we even knew like what we were actually doing. We were just for some reason, just with our gut and just intuitively doing all of the things that I teach my students now, even when I was launching my my business we lived in this very swanky apartment in downtown Phoenix, and it had a clubhouse. And so I would literally I would make these Facebook events, and I would literally go to the chamber events, and I would go to these networking events, and I would tell people, I'd say, look, I was like, can I just have 5 minutes? I've got a 5-minute presentation on how to utilize $5 ads. Can I be your opener tonight? And I would then, from there, I would invite people to Social Savvy Saturdays at my apartment, and I would fix mimosas. I posted a picture not too long ago. I was like, this was like 6 years ago. But we went to Dunkin' Donuts and we bought those Munchkin donut holes, and I would serve mimosas and donut holes. And I would just teach this one tactic, a $5 ad. And that was literally even before I started running ads for myself. That was the way that I like marketed my business. And it was just a snowball effect. It was just between the Facebook lives and going and doing all these live events. And then, I hustled, a lot of people think it came really easy. It didn't. I was just like, and this is the main thing, because I hustled, but I didn't let it take over my life, because a lot of people were like, you hustle and grind 24/7. I'm like, no, I really didn't. I woke up, my wife, did HR for Delta. And so she had to be sitting at her desk at 5 a.m. in the morning. From 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., I was live on Facebook helping people with their Facebook ads. And then I would come home for an hour and I would do all my messenger conversations. And then on my lunch hour, I would book 1 20-minute Zoom call that I would do in exchange for, hey, I'll help you set up your ads. Can I just use it for content? And I was adding that content to my YouTube channel and going live. But that's what I did. And that was literally how I got my business off the ground. And, a lot of people are like, well, I don't have time to do all of that. I'm like, I worked a full-time job and still had time to do all of this stuff. And so I think people forget that, just because you can start an internet business for free doesn't mean that it's free, because you do have to put together, time and a strategy. And that's why I tell people, you have to have a strategy. You have to have something in place. Otherwise, you are spinning your wheels. I see so many people, they're like, well, I spend 8 hours a day on social media. I'm like, doing what? Doing what, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not getting clients, what are you doing? And so that's the most important thing that I really want people to take away from, is this ecosystem was built as a strategy to do a lot of the heavy lifting. But a lot of people want the fancy, shiny object thing. They want that easy button, and it's just not. So hopefully this story that I just, told you guys kind of makes it more realistic for you, because I'm no one special. I was someone just like you guys who are, some of you guys are sitting here and you're like, oh my God. But look, I'm like, I was literally an everyday person. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. That was not something, it was honestly, Evelyn, an accidental business, if you really think about it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say your story is so different, because everybody's was waiting for the moment to fire the boss. And it seems like you reluctantly left, right? It seems like you loved it as well. So that's beautiful.
I did not want to leave, honestly. And, I actually wrote a post about this. I want to say it was last week. And it was actually one of my students. Her name is Maria Fontana. And she's like, Laurel, when are you going to quit your job? And I'm like, I don't think I'm ready. And she would call me dollface. Let's get on Zoom and let's do some math. And I never forget, we sat down and we did the math. And she's like, Laurel, you are making $360 an hour with your business, only working 3 hours a day, and you're only making $50 an hour at your job, and you're working 8 to 10 hours. She's like, going into the studio every single day is actually costing you money. And I love my job, so I don't have one of those I'm going to say F you, I absolutely as a matter of fact, my job threw me a huge party. A lot of people cried, and they were just like, wow, we're super happy for you. So yeah, it wasn't one of those things where I'm like, F the man and all of that stuff. And, but I always tell people, if you need cash flow, go get a part-time job. Don't try to run ads or out business your situation. Go and get comfortable, because honestly, that is why I'm standing here right now, is because I kept my job as long as humanly possible before quitting. And I think so many people quit way too soon. I I was good for 3 or 4 months before I made the decision to quit. And I probably would have stayed longer if Maria wouldn't have pulled me aside and was like, dude, let's do some math here. And we were able to get my wife the next month. I quit I actually gave my work, this is how much I didn't want to leave, a month's notice. I didn't give them 2 weeks. I gave them an entire month because I really wanted to help them find someone who was going to take my place that was going to do a really great job. And 2, my wife was able to quit in January because we did the math, and it was actually cheaper for her to come work with me than it was to hire someone. And she did HR for Delta. And so she just naturally knows how to do customer support and all of that stuff. And so our skills it was just the perfect way to, you know how they say like everything happens for a reason? Like meeting my wife was not by accident, right? Like her and I both are in a great position because of both of our skills. And it was actually her idea, right? It was her idea to start the t-shirt thing. Otherwise, I'd still be working in TV.
I think it's so beautiful. And you can also feel that it's a really good fit. There are 2 questions that I have, or 2 things I'd love to just hear your opinion on. The first thing is, I think it's actually, I don't want to blame our customers or clients for this. I think that the industry told them you have to quit. Like if you haven't fired your boss yet, what are you even doing? You have to burn the ships and the bridges and, go all in, because otherwise it won't work. And I know from my own story that the only time in my life when things didn't work was when I actually was put with a back against the wall, and I'm kind of good under pressure. So I would love for you if you could speak to that, because I think that's so critical that people understand it. Nothing bad with getting a job, like nothing bad with cross-funding for, and I cross-funded for years. Like I quit my last done for you client 1.5 years ago, like when I had it plenty. So I would love if you could speak to that.
Yeah, 100%. Like there's no shame in it at all. Like I 100% believe that I am standing here with this business that I have right now because I didn't quit my job, because like I said, I started my business April 2018. I never forget, it was right after my birthday. My birthday was April 26th. And I had started my business about 10 days before that. And I remember telling my wife for my birthday, I was like, there's this guy that I've been really paying attention to. He is, it looks like he's where I would like to be in the next couple of months. And I was like, I think for my birthday, can I spend $5,000? We put it on the credit card. And I was like, I really think that I need to do this. I'll actually tell you a funny story about that. Like 5 minutes after I paid, dude went and posted a Stripe screenshot.
Oh,
Literally right after I was like, fuck. I was like, and it made me have buyer's remorse because there was something icky about it. And he was just bragging that he just crossed over his first $30,000 month, and it was with my payment, right?
Yeah.
And it made me feel really bad. And the service that I got matched exactly how I felt in that moment. But I think what made it work was because I had just invested $5,000. And so now I knew that I had to get to work in order to not turn this into a shit show. Excuse my language.
Yeah. You were like, I make it back now.
I was like, and so I used him in the best way that I knew how. Even though he wasn't a good coach, I was able to pick the things that I liked about what he was doing, and I made a list. And so every time I was talking to him, I was asking him very specific questions. I was driving the coaching, but where it should really be the other way around. But at the end of the day, because I drove my coaching, that's really because he gave me one great piece of advice. And he was the one that said, I want you to go and I want you to do 100 Zoom calls for free before charging. That was the $5,000 piece of advice, but it worked like a freaking charm. And so I think sometimes in the coaching space, we're often like, well, I just wasted $5,000 or I just did this. There's always something that you can take away. Even from the shittiest products, there's always something that you can take away. And at the end of the day, like I coached him on how to coach me, which worked out great. But I just wanted to tell you guys that story because one, I invested in myself early on And so I think that's really what gave me the momentum in the front end. But number two, I didn't make myself a victim. I was like, you know what? I paid him and I'm going to, if he can't coach me the way that I need him to, I'm going to help him coach me in the way that I need him to, because I just paid him $5,000 and that's what I did. And he was very apologetic. And it just turned out that I was better at marketing than he was, honestly. But he had those little tactics that, because I already had my marketing experience, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Right. And so for anyone who's listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I invested in this and I'm not quite happy. Did you do everything in your power to actually execute on what was given? Because in my opinion, everything works if you work it long enough.
Yes, I 100% agree. And I always believe that sometimes just observing the person and sometimes just figuring out that it's not more than that, right? Because sometimes it just also demystifies something that you thought was so special and so magical and such a secret potion. And then you find out, oh, it's literally just showing up, right? Or it's literally just that. I think that can also often give us permission and take off this feeling like we cursed or it will never work out for us. So I think actually just paying to find out that he's not better than that and he still makes 30,000 could have been worth it. And then who is willing to do a 100 Zoom calls for free? One of the strategies that I'm teaching in Coach Growth Hub is free sessions to paid clients. I got my first 10 coaching clients in a month of starting it, where I put $1,000 in lead gen and I got the first 10 one-to-one clients that booked more than one sessions in that month, because I started always coaching for free until they asked me what my hourly rate was. But who is willing to just coach for free? I have this living in the portal and know so many of my members who are like, yeah, I really don't want to coach for free. It's like, but you don't have coaching experience. Yeah, but eventually I want to have a course, so I don't need to coach anyways. And I just don't understand, how you will get to a signature framework. How will you create your methodologies if you don't work with people?
Yes, the industry has really given people a false sense of what it is to be a consultant. Like, I consider myself more of a consultant, although I do have the coaching elements, because, my students know I don't show up unless they show up. And so I do have a lot of coaching elements in my consulting. But I think a lot of people have the misconception that we make fancy internet money, right? Like, it's not like anyone can just take a course and yesterday I was having this conversation with someone who posted on my Instagram, and they were saying something like, but I don't know how to get my first clients. Like, I want to, I just took a Facebook ads course and no one wants to pay me. And I'm like, no one should pay you. I was like, no offense. I was like, but just because you learned a skill doesn't mean that you can get results with that skill. And until you can get results with that skill, no one should be charging. And I know a lot of people are like, well, charge for your time. Yes, but if you are not being 100% transparent with the person that you're working with, that you're brand new, there's a couple of students in my program who are like, hey, I want to really learn how to get clients. How can I, work with you in order to do that? And so a lot of times I'll be like, well, if you come into my, Lean on Laurel program, I don't do this for everybody, but certain people, I'll be like, if you come into my Lean on Laurel program, I'll match you up with someone that you can do ads for really cheaply under my supervision. And so that's the way that I train a lot of my students, if they want to take on clients and still get paid to do it. But it's under the impression that, well, my students know that they're getting a student under my direction, and so that we're able to charge that student a little bit. That's kind of a different situation. But if you are going to charge people and you don't have the skill, if someone that you trust or an expert is not overlooking what you're doing, it's almost like you are and I hate to use the word scamming, but you're scamming people. Like, you can't promise these people that you're going to do this and you don't really know. And I have a no tolerance for that inside my $7 program. Like, I do not, and I'm upfront with students. I was like, do not post in the Facebook group asking for help on what to do. You just got your first client and now you need to know what to do. I'm like, what you need to do is refund. And I have made students, I was like, I will not work with you until you go and refund this client and show me proof that you did. Because I refuse to participate in any type of that kind of stuff.
I love this so much. How would you say has your integrity helped you to stand out in the industry the way you do?
Yeah, because I'm very transparent. A lot of times people think I'm a little overspoken, although my students say I'm spicy more
I
than
love it.
anything. But at the end of the day, like, you kind of have to be, because there's so many people, like, it's so hard to sell. And you know this, you hang out with 7 and 8 figure earners just as much as I do. And one of their biggest complaints, even some of the biggest in the industry, like that, if people only knew even how much they're hurting right now because of this coaching industry BS, right?
Mhm.
People don't believe anything anymore, because
Yeah.
so many people have been, group coaching programs aren't selling like they used to. I actually was on a call with a student just right before this, and she was telling me, she's like, God, she's like, it's really hard to sell my coaching. Everyone wants done for you. And I said, yeah, because everyone is kind of tired of getting bamboozled into these done with you that end up being almost do it yourself, because all of these broken promises and stuff. And it just makes me really sad, because I hear story after story after story. Well, I can't work with you because I just paid this other person thousands of dollars and I haven't, gotten. And I'm like, that's cool. Just stay in the $7 program. You don't need to buy anything else. Like, we do Zoom coaching calls in there, and we do weekly Q&A. And it breaks my heart to hear like all of these stories. And so that's been my mission ever since, I started 6 years ago. It's like, how do you create a really great offer? Is you go the opposite. Everyone was going high ticket at the time, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna create an offer for the underserved and well-deserved audience, because these are the people that, I don't believe that people who pay attention, because that honestly has not been my experience. Most of the people that I have given favors to, they almost work harder because they know how much my time is worth. And so they're like, Laurel just literally, like, she charges $1,000 for a power hour. Like, oh my God, like, I better go and execute on this. And even I've been gifted, free time with people. And I'm like, I work twice as hard to get results because I know how much that person's time is worth. And so, I mean, obviously people have different experiences, but I think that I have had such a great experience with people who are very grateful for me and my time and my program. And I think that has kind of helped my mindset around that one thing, that people who pay attention. I find that people who pay, they want to pay to not have to pay attention. Does that make sense? So like I think almost the opposite, right? Because for instance, I pay my mentor a lot of money because I don't want to pay attention. I just want him to tell me what I need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like the mindset that I have. And so I think that, I kind of think a little bit differently about that one statement.
I think I agree with you. I just think that so people ask me about this all the time, right? Should I do a free community or should I do a paid community? And I believe that it's not so easy to entertain a free Facebook group like anymore. So I believe if you want that community, definitely, then I would make it charged. But you also don't have to do it. You can just simply rely on email and social media, right? But I don't believe that the free group is what it used to be as a vehicle. So that's the only context where I say, if you're planning to have a group from which you're serving people and then, sell a VIP day or sell a higher price membership, $49 or whatever, I believe it makes sense to either have a paid smaller group or to just do email and social media. Don't see the free groups really working well if you're not going into a high ticket from there, if that makes sense.
100%. We're 100% aligned. I tell people that, my $7 program, and this will be a great way to bring this conversation to full circle, right? I always tell people have the misconception that I started with my $7 program. I did not. That was the last thing I built, right? But if we think about conceptually, right, this whole entire conversation, what I've been talking about, I sold my agency first. That was my agency service. And then I had like a high ticket 45-day ads accelerator. It was $2,000. Going live every day and giving away these cheat sheets. By the time I launched the $7 program, I had about 3,000 people in my messenger every single day asking me questions because of all of the marketing that I was doing, all the pipeline equity, right? So I was able to launch the $7 program, but I didn't do it to make money. I did it to leverage, right? Because I was like, well, all these people are asking me the same question. They want Facebook ad support. Let me create a low barrier offer so that I can congregate all of these people in one place and make sure they're well served versus having to have all these messenger conversations. And so that, in my opinion, is the perfect storm. When you have zero budget and you want to launch a low barrier offer, that is the perfect storm to launch that with zero ad budget and without having to spend any money, is building an audience first. And so hopefully that kind of brought this whole conversation and wrapped it up in a pretty little bow, because that's literally, I literally just told you guys everything about how I built my business, and it's all content and having conversations with people. That is, by the way, still my business model. I still have zero funnel.
So cool. Thank you so much for your time, Laura. I think this is massively helpful for everybody who considers this. Can you maybe, as a last sentence, give them the kick in the butt that they need about consistency and patience when attempting this? Because I think that you have to go in with that lens.
Yep. It is 90 days to data. Okay. 90 days to data. You have to go and engage the field, meaning go and get your data. I heard this quote on Shark Tank the other day. It's the most perfect quote, is there's no failure, only feedback. And so if you are willing to put in the work for the first 90 days, content, one piece of content every single day, whether you use it for ads, it does not matter. One piece of content every single day for 90 days, you will have the data to know what did well and what did not. You double down on the things that did well and you get rid of the things that did not. Your next 90 days, you will get so much freaking momentum. The magic is actually in the 180 days versus the 90 days, because 90 days to data, keep what worked, take away what didn't, double down on what worked. And then after 180 days, you will see massive momentum. And it is that easy. It is that easy.
Just got to do it.
Just got to freaking do it. Just got to freaking do it. As Alex Hormozy would say, what does he say? Fuck next week, fuck Friday, something like that. It's just like, I always tell my students, fuck tomorrow. Like, just get something done today.
Thank you so much, Laurel.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.